Okay, so for this card, this is our standard trinomial. So this is the most involved problem that we're going to do for factoring. It's where we have to pull in all the factoring that we know. They are trinomials. We have a lead coefficient, so that number attached to that x squared is something other than 1. So what we want to really make sure is that we have the trinomial in standard form, which means our exponents are either going to count up or down. This example has both x's and y's, and if I look at the exponents, the x's count down, so I go from x squared to x to no x, and the y's count up, so I go from no y to a y to a y squared. So this is in standard form. It is hopefully factorable. We have a way with this method to see if it's factorable. So we'll get started with our steps. And our first step is always to do the GCF. And this problem is the parenthesis part from our GCF example. I thought I'd pull it back in just so that we can see that. So we don't have another GCF to factor out of it, but that GCF, if I would have done the original problem, this is finishing that GCF example that we had on our first card. Okay, so the second step is going to be multiplying that first term and the last terms together, and then we're going to list the factors. So we've started that. We've done the 4x squared times negative 6y squared. Now I do that off to the side of the problem that I'm going to work because I don't want it to, my work on this calculations to confuse the problem that I'm solving. So keeping it a little organized, we're going to list our factors of 24, and then we're going to put the x and y with it because we're going to take each one of those letters. That middle term is what we're going to be eventually looking for, and that has the x and y, and it's half of the x squared and half of the y squared, so one from each of those, and our factors of 24. So my factors for the 24 are 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. And I've put those x, y's in there just so that we remember that those are the like terms that we're going to be dealing with as we try to get that middle term. So we find the factors pair that equals the middle term. If the product that when we multiply those, that first and last term, if it's positive, we're going to add. If it's negative, we're going to subtract. So we had a negative 24x squared y squared. That means we're going to subtract our factors. So as we subtract, we get negative 23xy, negative 10xy, negative 5xy, and negative 2xy. Now, the middle term that I have in this problem is 5xy. So if the sign of the middle term doesn't match the sign of that factor, I'm just going to switch the orders or switch the signs of both terms. So instead of 3xy and a negative 8xy, I'm going to have an 8xy and a negative 3xy. So then once I found that factor pair, I'm going to rewrite the problem replacing the middle term with that factor pair, or I'm going to use that X box where I make a cross and the first times the last, it goes in the upper part, the middle term goes in the bottom, and then I have my factor 1 and my factor 2 on the left and the right. Either way works. And then from here is going to be factor with your favorite way of 4 terms. So you can either do the grouping or you can do the area method. I will write both probably on this card. So it's your choice of which ones you want to have. You could have both of them, or you can just pick which one you like better. So we can see the steps. If we do the grouping method, we're looking at the first 2 terms, and we're taking a 4x out of the first 2. When I take the 4x out, I'm left with x plus 2y. For the second group, it starts with a negative, so I'm taking out a negative 3y from both terms. And that gives us a negative 3y times x minus 2y. And then my parentheses will match. And then it is the parentheses that match I wrote here. And then the outside of what the GCFs were is 4x minus 3. So that is factored if I do it the grouping method. The other way is if I do the area method, I put the first term in the upper box, which is that 4x squared. The last term is the negative 6y squared. And then I put my factors in either one of these 2 boxes. Just make sure you don't repeat yourself in one of them. So one of them's got the 8xy and one of them has the negative 3xy because those are the factors that added up to a 5xy. And now I'm finding a GCF going in every direction. So up and down between the 4x squared and the negative 3xy, all I can pull out is an x. That's the GCF. And in the 8xy and negative 6y squared, the only thing in common is a 2y. Going across, I have 4x squared and 8xy. GCF going across is going to be my 4x. And then GCF going across here, starting with the first one is a negative, so that's my negative happens for that GCF. And it is a 3y between those two. So my answer, my two factors, are going to be the numbers on the outside. So I have the 4x minus 3y and the y plus the x plus 2y. And then just make sure that if you did do the grouping one, I did change that 2 to a 3 because it was written incorrectly. But so card looks good. You pick which way you want. You can have both of these on your card or just pick which way works best for you. Both of them are algebraically sound and perfectly valid.